We need you now.
It's not. No, it's not even that. No. It's not even that.
It is time for you to save the country.
It's. I got one the other day that just said, "I give up." They're like
clickbait.
Yes.
Like.
Yes. They've become clickbait emails. That like I'll just like look. Sometimes there's no indication that it's political. It's a name and then just such a super dramatic. I guess they won this time. You're like, what? Who won? Yeah, and I'm still getting them.
How do you think you've like gotten on those lists?
I genuinely I don't know, and I bet that it's probably also possibly easy to get off of these lists. But right now I just want to complain about the just amount of them and do nothing about it in typical Kevin fashion, where I just kind of ignore it and just complain about the problem.
I got hit with jury duty.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm like for down in Somerset County.
Oh, no. I had to vote I never changed my address. So
you had to go Baltimore County?
Yeah, I had to go to elementary school in Canesville to vote. And I was like, I did myself no favors there. So you got jury duty when?
It was for first week of December, and I called them up and I was like, I just did jury duty, and I was like, does that kind of get me into some category where I shouldn't be doing it again? And then like she looked, I'm like, I don't have any paperwork on it, and so she looked it up, and it was like, I think it was in like 2015, and I was like, oh yeah, it was like a while ago. But I was like in my mind,
yeah,
like
I just did it.
I feel like it's like I should only have to do this like once in my life. Why are you pulling me up again? It's like there aren't enough people in the county that you would just like
the world's population just crossed 8 billion, and you're bothering me twice for jury duty.
It's like for me, I was like, it was a blur. Like it was like I just did that a couple years ago, but that was like 7 years ago. So I think the limit was like if you've served like within the last 3 years, you'd be that was an exempt.
So you were still outside of that threshold.
And so all the exempts were like not applicable to me, but like if I had a reason I thought would make me exempt, I had to write a letter. And so I wrote them a letter, and I was just
I had to write a letter.
I wrote a letter.
It involved letter writing.
I didn't type that shit. I hand wrote it with a pen.
You hand wrote a letter.
I had to write a rough draft, because I wanted it to be like.
Oh my God.
And then I wrote it out, and I explained to them, I'm like, I don't live in that house for those seasons of the year. Like in the wintertime, that house is winterized, and so like I have no running water, no toilet, no shower. And here's a bill from my current place of residence. I was trying to basically like not get myself like into a position where it was like, I don't know, like as if like I didn't, because I haven't switched licenses over and all this other kind of stuff.
You could have just made it like one sentence where you just like claim to be racist. And they're like, never mind.
Well, I went through all this. I'm like,
you just say Kanye West is right. And they just go, never mind.
I would be like, I would feel like they'll find some way to still pull me.
Yeah. Be like, this is America in 2022. Like, they'll put me to the top of the jury.
Yeah. I just thought like, I was like, I don't know. I had anxiety about it because I was like, I don't really mind that duty, but at the same time it was like just be really inconvenient.
No, the duty of it is not the problem here.
Like, I would just be like, it's almost like it's a drag to get snagged for it again, but it was also just like
3-hour drive for this, which is also not any kind of a guarantee.
Yeah. Well, the last time I had
or B, you'll be there multiple days.
Every time I called up, they're like, "No, we don't need you." And I'm like, cool, I didn't have to do it, but like it was still like
you would have had to have been on the road at that point.
They only give you like, I don't know, like $20 or something. You enough to maybe get like a fast food.
I don't even think it's 20. I feel like when I got it, I think it was 10. I feel like I got a tenner.
Here's enough for you to pay for parking.
You want to know the thing about my jury duty experience that I'll never forgive them for? I'll never forgive them for this. I had a very long, proud streak of having never seen a movie starring Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson ever in my life. Not one. Don't care to. Right? And I was proud of it. And he was never doing anything that was ever going to be interesting to me. So I could just be like, that'll be something that I'll take to the grave, having never seen a movie by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. And I'm sitting in that damn jury duty pool. And sure enough, Jumanji comes on the damn TV, the new one. And I'm held hostage and just sit there and have to watch stupid The Rock run around in the forest. for 2 hours, and then didn't have, was just dismissed. Like they just kept me down there to pay me $10 to watch Jumanji, and then let me go.
You actually had to go to the.
Yeah, I was there. I was standing there waiting. They were calling jurors, and I was in the jury duty pool that morning.
Dang.
And they forced me to watch Jumanji, and then told me to go home with $10.
The Rock's in that?
Yeah, these new ones. It's like Jack Black and The Rock, some other people.
I watched. I liked it, and it was a certain kind of like movie for me, and I was like, I got what I wanted out of it. But The Rock was in it. I can't remember what the name of it was, but it was like some stuff where basically like shit hits the fan, the world's ending. It's like tsunamis.
Yep.
There's
buildings.
Like, there's like a
The
scene
Rock.
where they're like on a boat and they're going up this huge like tsunami wave, and you're just like, this just like scratches an itch of like wanting to see the CGI.
Yeah, sure.
CGI sort of apocalypse.
Sure.
Or whatever.
Yeah,
And,
I get that.
But it was I feel like I've seen something else with him in it too, but
Mine's just like a long running inside joke is essentially what it is. It's just at one point, I think during the beginning of him being in the Fast and the Furious or something, and me going like, "Oh, I've never seen any of his movies. Like, I know who he is as a wrestler. I know who he is, obviously. I've
he
just
was in
haven't
Fast and the Furious.
He's like in the Fast and Furious movies, like beefing with Vin Diesel all the
I
time,
didn't.
right? So he's
I
in
knew
like
Vin Diesel, but I'm like, I think I saw maybe the first one.
yeah, those two like are
theaters.
beefing like in real life. They have like weird contract stuff that like those two aren't allowed to like fight in the movie, and if they do, nobody can be the winner or the loser. Like those guys like don't like each other. It's wild. But anyway, I know more about it, but I've never seen it. I just through osmosis I've gleaned all that information. But anyhow, at some point when I realized I hadn't, it just became a firm like, oh, I won't. I'm gonna like just that'll be a funny thing if I just it's not like it's a funny inside joke to me because I like taking inside jokes for years and decades, so it's something I can do. And B, I just can't imagine his taste. He's never going to be in anything that I'm genuinely interested in. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have any beef with him. He's cool. He's The Rock. He does a lot of cool stuff. I follow him on Instagram. Yeah, I think he's cool.
What's he up to these days? Is he doing? What's he doing? He's not wrestling still.
Oh no. He's doing. He's trying to save the DC cinematic universe.
Yeah, that makes sense.
He's the Black Adam. Like,
oh, I thought I saw something about that.
Yeah.
And that what is the Black Adam? What is
it's
that?
Superman. It's like a Superman. It's in the Captain Marvel / Shazam. You know, the red dude with the not Flash, the other red guy with the lightning bolt on his chest. Shazam. He's the boy.
Yeah.
Shazam. They made a movie of that a couple of years ago. But Black Adam is like a black and yellow version. Picture the black and yellow version of that Shazam character.
Okay.
Who's typically like an anti-hero or a villain sometimes. So that's who Black Adam. Yeah, that's who Dwayne The Rock Johnson is playing now. But they're not having anything to do with Superman and stuff like that. So they're kind of trying to like to really sort of attaching everything to this. Yeah.
They're reaching for some new stuff.
Yeah. And like there's only so many characters that DC is has any kind of real control over on that level, like that people really know, and they're using them.
I saw a trailer just last night. It was for something called The Whale.
The Brendan Fraser.
Brendan
movie.
Fraser. Yeah. The thumbnail, I was like, "What is this?" And then I watched it, and I was like, "What is this?" And then I had to Google like, "What is this movie about?" And I read. I'm like, "Oh, okay." But the director's like the same guy as Requiem for a Dream. And I was like, "Oh,
yeah."
I was like, what would I be expecting to see?
And it's I think it's an A24 movie.
Yeah.
So it's like it's a blend of like, oh, I see what this is now. Probably pretty good.
Yeah, it's probably going to be dark and dramatic and moody.
Brendan Fraser got like a 6-minute standing ovation at like some film festival for it. Like, it's cool. I think that there is still a little bit of beef with casting non-heavy actors in fat suits. I think there are still people that would rather you just cast a heavy guy.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering, did he actually just blow up or whatever? Because he was supposed to be like morbidly obese, like 600 pounds, so that'd be pretty crazy to do that for that role.
He's pretty trim these days.
Yeah, I want to shave like 10 years off of my life. Hey, how do you feel temperature-wise in here?
No, I'm good.
I can turn the thermostat up.
Oh, no, I'm good.
burn some fossil fuels.
Oh, if it looks like I'm not cold, even if I'm in the cold position, I'm just in the comfortable position.
I started thinking about it because I'm like, well, holding a microphone, which is like this like metal bodied thing,
No, I'm
and it's
good.
like my hands are kind of clammy and cold.
I just wanted
Not
something to,
clammy,
like,
but
rest.
just cold.
I was just gonna swing this and just have it in my
Well,
go hands free.
Yeah, well, see, I got the
Or
microphone
go Steven
stand.
Tyler and just put a bunch of scarves.
I got a bandana you can start it
yeah, I
off
was
with.
gonna say, just wrap this in scarves and do that.
I was like, oh man, I thought I had I have two boom microphone stands, and I'm using the one for like the camera because it gives you the ability, get a little bit of angle or whatever. But like, I have a second one. I'm like, I guess that's still packed up. I don't have that available. But I thought that one was that, and then I like took off the shit that I had on the side of it. And I was like, oh no, it's just your standard.
This was like the grippiest.
Yeah, those things are they're nice because they can handle different mics that I
Yeah.
have, but like these days I'm pretty well just using the 58 or the 57. But the problem is with those is like they get too old, and you start to like do this, and then like the rubber, it'll just break. I've already broken one of those, but they're probably
I break
like,
those plastic ones though all the time too.
Yeah, I have like my rigid plastic ones.
So even if you
are-
get double the life out of it, I think that's a win, right?
Yeah, I could probably re-up on some of that gear. Like I'm probably using most of the stuff's like hand-me-downs that I inherited from probably like Harry and the Shades and stuff. Like stuff that was just like thrown away or like abandoned. I'm like, well, I could use that.
Yeah.
But I've like I think I've broken one or two of those nice soft rubbery ones. Trying to like change the angle of it, and then it was just like, oh, the screw was too tight, so I was really forcing it, and then it just like tore. But I don't know. I'm like, microphone mounting hardware is, it doesn't rise to the top of the list too often.
Even if you're in a music store, you'll like just aimlessly wander around there, like I guess I need strings or picks or something, and then you'll like leave and be like, oh, you know what? I could have actually bought something I actually kind of need.
Yeah.
But I always just sort of forget. What are you gonna do with that microphone? The new flat one.
The new flat. Oh,
You just need an excuse project. You just
Well-
gotta you just have to dedicate a project where you're just like, that'll be the project that I use that microphone on.
So the microphone Kevin's referring to is the Realistic brand, or like the old school kind of like associated with Radio Shack. Realistic brand, the PZM microphone. And I'm not even worried about the model number, but it's like OG, like 80s. But like it's in the box. I got it off of eBay, and I bought it based off of the Earthquaker Devices Show Us Your Junk video with, I don't remember the guy's name, but he was the guy, one of the recordings he did in the past was Beck's Loser, and he claimed to have used that for the vocals, or Beck used that for the vocals. And this microphone's like kind of like a boundary mic where you could use it for like conference rooms and stuff, but I'm going to want to use it for vocals. It says you can use it for like drums and stuff too, or at least, I mean, you like look it up online and YouTube and all that, and there are people who've like touted it for drum recording. But
Could you just lay it on the drum?
well, here's the thing. I mean, just like any other microphone, there's variety of results you get from the way you place it. Like you could mount it to, like, I think it suggests putting it up against like a flat surface. So like a wall or ceilings. I've seen for people doing it overheads. If it was on a table, a long flat surface, it's really good for your dialogue if you're having a conference. But yeah, I think he said like Beck just like held the thing right up to his face or whatever. But by putting it, mounting it, because it's on a square, I think it has like holes so you can actually like use like screws or whatever you can mount it to shit.
Interesting.
Depending on what you mount it to will affect the way
Realistic.
it sounds. Yeah,
Like
realistic.
the stereo brand. I think more like stereo hi-fi equipment. Less like musical equipment.
Actually, going through one box, I had this old microphone set. I think it was like from the 60s. Their Realistic brand. The Realistic definitely did a lot of like,
They were doing it.
pro audio, and then like low, like I guess like, consumer grade audio. But these microphones apparently they came in a set, and they sold for like $100 brand new back in the 60s, and they just flopped. No one was buying them. And then they repackaged them and sold them for like $20-$30. But
One of the all-time great logos. Realistic.
Yeah.
It's very appealing to me.
Well,
I don't care what it is. Like whatever they slap their name on it, I would instantly be like, yeah, I'd like to own that based just on their look. They're always aesthetically pleasing. That packaging is so cool.
Yeah.
Of that. I'd like a T-shirt. I want a T-shirt with the logo.
To me,
What do they do? They don't still exist.
No, they
They're
don't.
long
Yeah, I
gone.
think it became like what was it? Optimum or something? Optimus?
Optimus.
Optimus, like it was Radio Shack and it was bought. Maybe that's not even affiliated with Realistic, but it's basically a company started small and then sold, and it had the ability to, I guess get distribution through like Radio Shack.
Was Realistic Radio Shack?
I think so. Like
it feels like it.
it was probably like if I'm not mistaken, like a small company that then, sold to be able to sell in a bigger operation, and then got, made more money by having it be something that Radio Shack carried, that product line. But they did like microphones, speakers, stereos. I mean, probably well, like most your stuff that Radio Shack sold once upon a time when that existed. And for me, I always have been like had a special place in my heart for a lot of that gear, because growing up, that was kind of like the first line of access to a lot of gear, was going to Radio Shack and seeing microphones and speakers and stereos that were like,
I was already at the mall.
Yeah.
I may as well just go into the Radio Shack and be like, a microphone?
Yeah.
My idols sing through a microphone.
And they'd have varieties of them too. You could get like from the cheap to the expensive things there, but like it wasn't like.
But it was cheap. They had cheap though. That was
karaoke mics.
Yeah, they had stuff you could walk out of there with something usable. I still use stuff that I bought at Radio Shack. I have a little microphone mixer.
Yeah, the microphone mixers they have too. You can go on eBay. Like you can find like they have for like less than $30, at least last time I checked, you could get like these mixers that have VU meters in them.
Yeah,
and they work off of batteries, or you can put a little DC adapter to it. But those things are sweet because I mean, just trying to get your hands on a VU meter if you want to build a little project, they're just like they're not cheap, and it's almost like gosh, for $30 shipped to my house, I can get 2 of them.
Yeah,
and they're rectangle. They look classic looking, and it's like I started having these ideas of taking those mixers and like gutting them and like souping them up with like other circuits and stuff, but using the same peripherals like the faders and the VU meters on them, and but like I don't know, I am not doing that because I am like I would get into a kick where I'd buy one, and I was watching them, and I had several of them on my watch list on eBay, and then you're like, man, this one's about to go, and it's like a really good price, and then like I'd get like usually I'd cap it off at 2. I'd get 2 of something.
Yep.
And then like I was like, I got enough of these now.
I have enough of these.
And I am not doing anything with them. I still might do that, but like sometimes I think a lot of times what happens when I have this vision of taking something and repurposing it and doing something else with it, I like get it, and then I end up feeling bad, like it's like sacrilege to take this thing that I could probably restore and make fully functional as it would be, and then like hack it up for some shit that I probably almost like it'll just be like a short-term thrill, and then it'll like go to the wayside, and I just kind of just ruin something that there's only so many of those left,
that somewhere there's a younger version of you searching for it.
Yeah, those mixers too, I mean, they're pretty cool, but like from my dissecting and researching, looking at the schematics, which a lot of that older stuff, like the Realistic stuff, you can find schematics for. And there's really not a lot of mojo to them. They're like transistors. They're not op amps because they can run off of batteries and this and that. But they're just basically, they don't add any gain. They're just like summing mixers. And they can be pretty cool for stuff because you can slam them with loud signals and the way that they'll, distort and all that. But it'd be sweeter if they actually had the ability to make things even louder. So then you can get some sort of mojo out of those parts inside there where you're kind of getting, total harmonic distortion out of these like old transistors or something, getting those
instead of just being
a clean mixer
Yeah.
with a little bit of noise in the mix if you're, around, power or something.
I bought that mixer in high school. And I convinced my mom that I needed it for a project. And my mom was sort of like, it needs to be what? I'm like, oh yeah, I just need this. And I really just wanted it for like trying to start a band.
I think I even remember that particular unit in your basement there on Fairmount. And it coincidentally, there was the exact same one, if I'm not mistaken, in the wall ride basement that was floating around.
Yeah, that's a possibility. Yeah.
Like, it didn't have meters on it.
Nope.
It was just like basically 4 inputs, and,
Yep.
and it had a switch for mono to stereo.
Yep.
It could run off a 9-volt battery.
Yep. It was just a Radio Shack, realistic, that I just was like, oh yeah, and she bought it, and I was like, oh yeah, definitely use that for that project I needed to do.
Had 1/4 inch and RCA for your inputs.
Yeah.
It gave you the option of basically a strong signal or needed to be amplified mic signal. But yeah, the amplification for the mic line, it was just it wasn't real, there was no gain there. It was almost like the input was adjusted.
It was just at 100, and it could just be less than that.
Yeah.
If you just needed less than, not more of. I think there should be more devices out there that just give you less than. I think we put too much pressure on these things to keep giving us more.
Well, that would be an EQ pedal for you.
Just take away.
You can take, and it's
More
not
take
really
away.
gain on a lot of those guitar effects pedals. I'm pretty certain it's just just EQ.
I brought 2 guitar pedals with me today.
What guitar
this
pedals
case.
did you bring?
I brought the Behringer Super Fuzz,
Oh yeah,
that orange plastic
one.
pedal, and the MXR Badass 78.
I can visualize that.
Red.
yeah.
It's red. It's their version of a hot rodded DS1. I think hence the 78.
One that was debuted.
Yeah, I believe.
Does the Super Fuzz, the Behringer pedal, have you had issues with noise in that using it? Since it's such a high, kind of pushes a lot of gain, does it, because of the plastic enclosure, did you have any issues in your time in use with that, with how you powered it? Were you using a power brick? Sort of a...
Yeah, I always have it plugged in. I've never actually use a battery with it. No, the plastic for me is not a deal breaker. The plastic for me, I don't tour, I don't play. I turn most of my pedals on by hand. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So for me, that's whatever. I bought it because everybody just told me I had to, in a sense. It was just kind of this is too cheap and too cool to not own, and you will get something out of it. And the 2.5 sounds that it has are 2.5 completely different things that are both on the same side of a very noisy coin.
Isn't that kind of a version of the Boss Fuzz?
It's the octave fuzz. It has an octave thing to it. So you can only pretty much play power chords. Anything with 3 notes starts getting real muddy. So you really drop D tuning or power chord. You really, if you're using it like that, which is the only way to use it. I don't know of anybody that doesn't just have that thing. Just why would you own such a thing and not just have it on 10? It's not subtle.
Yeah, it's got there isn't a lot of range there where you're gonna get your clean.
No, that's not the point. That's not the point of it at all.
That engages in it.
There's
fuzz.
4 million other options if you just want that. That thing exists to make as much noise as possible.
Does it have a tone knob on it?
It has. We could just be looking at it. It has
one-handed. Look at that. All right, yeah.
It's got level, treble, and just gain, and then a bass. So it does give you a bass and treble. So you got more than just one sweeping tone option.
Yeah, it's pretty swank, man.
And then
you Fuzz 1, Fuzz 2, and then
and then
boost.
just clean boost.
So it does give you a little. You could use it for like some clean.
So yeah, it does have that option, I guess.
I don't know if I can like
But the thing that is like the trick to it is that it has
reference.
It has a 2.5 or a third spot because of that switch being a slidey switch. You can get it stuck between 1 and 2.
I think I remember hearing or watching a video where that was talked about.
Yeah.
It was like sort of like a little.
And it brings in different, like it's like both, because they're both two different sounds. One is really kind of a scooped out, like kind of a palm muty, chuggy, but messy. And then the other one feels like it's like the kind of the reverse of that. It almost feels like it's like a more mid heavy. They're both cool. They're both usable. You have to be in the mood for one or the other. They're both usable. They're both very noisy. Only one of them is going to make sense to you at a time, if that makes sense. Like if you're in the mood for one, the other one's going to sound terrible. If that makes sense. Like you're going to hear it against bass and against drums, or you're going to hear it against something else and know that each one of the sounds that it has offers a distinctive thing. I know that's vague, but it's kind of like it's if you want that thing, this will deliver it. If you want that noise on any level, if you want just like bombastic, grungy, heavier than grunge, Super Fuzz is the Mudhoney, Super Fuzz Big Muff.
Have you ran the bass? Have you done bass with that?
I've never done a bass through it.
See, I know with like a lot of guitar pedals, they the circuits on them when they're aimed to be used for just like a standard like 6-string guitar that they filter out like low end so that you're not like, especially with like ones that push gain, give you like distortion or fuzz or whatever, that like the lows are kind of filtered out on the front end so that you don't like blow out the gain
or
just
muddy
for low
it.
and get mud. So like running a bass through it can actually you're compromising what the bass is intended to be good for, which is low end.
I almost, in my mind, I've used it enough and I know the two sounds and know sort of my applications for them that I almost am like, yeah, I know what that sounds like with a bass. Like it would work. It would be great. I already hear. I actually probably feel like they would be maybe the one time you do turn it off of, full blast. Look, you can see it is on max on that gain. That is where that thing just exists. And that is not normally my thing. I normally do, even as noisy and grungy as I like to be, I like the guitar to be crisp in there. And I don't like it to start, rounding off those edges at some point with gain. So even the gnarlier Big Muffs and Rat pedals, I don't have fully tend.
Yeah, it feels like with fuzz pedals, or at least like I use that with the fuzz face. It's like it just like you end up being like, oh man, like the fuzz control is gonna be.
The fuzz face is like the other part of it. The fuzz face is like the other finger on that glove. The Big Muff, the
transistor bass
of those fuzzy
2 or 3 transistor fuzzes.
Yep. That all sound good with bass. That's why I said that it already is fine. You know that there's a very specific bass tone that if you're playing a bass through a fuzz pedal like that, you're looking for a specific tone, you'll find that in those pedals. At least I do.
Speaking of the fuzz pedals, my crustacean fuzz, that was I'll take a moment to talk about that here. I was like, so that's like a couple transistors in it. It was based around like a fuzz face. I had a fuzz face and I had other like noise pedals to me that I was just like, the fuzz face seemed to just really work well with like the distortion that you get out of it, yet like it didn't have as much noise like maybe when you're not really playing as like the DS1. It always seemed like I had like more noise
didn't have
issues.
like collateral damage noise.
Yeah.
Where it just wreaked havoc on the air around it.
It was like a cleaner noise.
Yeah. I know what that means. Yeah, I follow.
I was like really just wanting to like kind of try to like experience that in designing where I could create something that could kind of get that kind of more creamier sounding distortion like the fuzz face. And but with like really getting into like op amps, like I just like had to throw op amps into the equation. And so the fuzz face is just transistors. And also with fuzz faces, or a lot of like, similar, like I feel like, I don't know if it's as much with like big muffs and stuff, but I know that like with the fuzz face, it's like, oh, you put that on the front end because it really reacts a lot with your pickups in your guitar. So like your volume and everything, like it cleans up nicely. So if you roll back the volume on your guitar, you can really kind of change the way that the fuzz face sounds and get like maybe just a really good rich overdrive kind of sound. So if you put pedals before it, and a lot of pedals have buffers and all that, you change that effect. But I really didn't know all that stuff, in the time of developing it. So like the way I use the op amp, it's like a dual op amp, and I use one op amp on the front. Signal comes in, it's like a buffer, and then it goes into the transistor stage, and then I use the second op amp as like kind of like a fixed gain stage, sort of similar. I had some, just looking at schematics of like the DS1, taking a pedal I didn't like as much, and it was like still utilizing some of the architecture and the circuit from that. But yeah, like once I did that, like it still had that reaction to it, despite having a op amp buffering stage before the transistors, where if you dial back the volume on your guitar, or at least my Squier Telly and other guitars I've seen it used with, it changed that the sound of the fuzz, where you could actually kind of get like a good not clean, but like more of an overdrive sound out of it. But yeah, that was kind of like that was like I was trying to actually make an overdrive when I was messing around with that, and I was trying to see if I could do it with transistors, but like I'm just falling into the sticky trap of just like, man, I just love it was just so much fun chugging with distortion.
It's still my favorite.
Yeah.
If I have 25 guitar effects pedals, 20 of them are drive pedals of some sort. Like, it's my favorite thing. And it's because my philosophy on this stuff is probably stupid and different than a lot. I rarely, I never turn my guitar down like that. Like
the volume on
like mine, you could just break off the knob. I only turn it down when I'm done playing. It's like the only time. It could just be an on-off switch.
Yeah.
My volume knob could just be an on-off switch. I've never been that guy. I really like to just find something, and I really like to just find that thing and stick to it. Even if finding that thing becomes a never-ending adventure of trying to find that thing, I like to find that thing where I can just kind of put it where I need it to be on 10 or wherever, and then just turn it off and on. Because musically, I'm not that creative or inventive, or I don't have those kind of dynamics. A lot of times my songs are on, off, loud, soft. Because of that, recording wise, I can record all my chorus guitars at once, you know what I mean, with like the same distortions and things, because I don't get them louder. I just add more guitars, maybe a different distortion sound. But yeah, I'm really kind of a boring person when it comes to that stuff. I really like finding the thing that works and kind of sticking to it. Like that with pedals.
Have you had what's like your longest running, or do you have like a go-to when it comes to the dirtying up with your guitar, like a distortion?
I have it's funny I say all that. I do have like rules though. I do have like because of that, I guess maybe I have like specific rules, specific order on pedal boards always of specific things in specific orders. I always have some sort of, I palm mute all the time. I'm a palm mutey guitar player guy. So I like to have bright bridge pickup with some sort of just overdrive at all time. That is just a staple.
Are you a Tube Screamer kind of fan?
Strangely, that's never been a Tube Screamer. That pedal has never been a tube screamer. I've owned a couple. I've never been that guy. I like the Boss OD one,
Yellow.
the yellow one. I had one of them for a long time, and that was it. That was that sound I was looking for. I always go back to maybe my favorite pedal of all time, the BB preamp.
Yeah.
Is that exact sound. It's been the Blues Driver before, but that's a little more squishy, if that makes sense. That one, I think, sometimes can either be a little more high gain than people, for a pedal called the Blues Driver. It'll do it by itself. Like, if you can crank that thing. Same with the OD1. Like, yeah, I feel like sometimes they get underestimated as like they can be rock. You can bring rock with those things. You really can.
I've never played with one, but I've gotten the impression that they're a pretty handy tool in the bag of effects, where you can really kind of carve a lot of different styles from that.
It feels like if you were looking at like a scale, and 0 was like a clean guitar, and 10 was like Mesa Boogie chug. It feels like I'm looking for a pedal like the BB preamp or the OD1 that gets me like 3 to 7. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, that's where I want that to exist. 3 to 7. I'll never turn down my guitar, so it just needs to itself exist. Like, I can just, by my own technique, by just playing lighter, I have become the master of that. Like, I feel confident in that fact that I don't have to turn the pedal down or my guitar down to turn me down. Like, between holding the pick or, there's tricks. You play guitar long enough and you figure out tricks of just playing lighter. I also don't use compression pedals or stuff, so I can use those dynamics a little more. That's why compression pedals,
Squish it.
They squish it too much where I don't have as much control. I like the, have you ever seen this stupid interview with Dave Mustaine when he talks about his tone? Have you ever seen this?
Maybe.
I'm going to paraphrase. I feel like it's like memeable. It was something to the effect of like discounting, like, it's not the guitar, it's not the amp. Right?
Yeah.
And as dumb as that is, I agree in a sense. My entire life I've been playing with, like, I'm poor. I bought so much like crappy beginner stuff. I still buy crappy beginner stuff. We're talking about a $25 guitar pedal here. Mm-hmm. I still am attracted to that stuff. And yet the stuff that I've created using that stuff is all stuff that I'm genuinely proud of, at least on that level. Sometimes some of the songwriting and stuff could catch up, but a lot of times it's like, yeah, but I knew the sound. Like, I was able to a lot of times get the sound of that song from my head to tape. It may not be good, but it's a lot of times close, if not most of the time better, thankfully. You need to just luck into it sometimes. Sometimes you're trying to do a second vocal take because the first one sucked and your voice did something weird where you like accidentally stumbled into some harmony, and you're just like, oh, like, oh, that didn't exist in my brain. That was something else. That was some happy accident that just then made the song that was in my head, it's now 10% better with that. So I just kind of rely on a little bit of that luck, mm-hmm. right? Hoping for these accidents and mastering the cheaper gear, or not cheaper, but the gear that I have as much as possible. And then sometimes the exact opposite, where you just get lost and just turn knobs for an entire day. You just get lost in the sauce there. Mm-hmm. But I always like to have sort of those rules, those steady. Like to have that. I also always like to have a different. So I like to have that one that exists from 3 to 7.
Like an overdrive.
Some sort of overdrive. And then I also sort of like to have one that exists from like 6 to 9. Something that is like, and that is kind of my like chorus tone. That is just kind of my like, turn it on and that's the chorus every time. You hear that sound and you know that this is that part of the song. Like no frills, right? I like to have that sound as well. So I like that I try to be is clean, low end, chuggy, crispy. I always refer to those as like more crispy as well. Palm muty if possible. but not get into any kind of fuzzy territory. That's never a big muff for me. That I lose control at that point with the big muff. The big muff or fuzz pedals in general to me, in terms of my songwriting, fuzz pedals are almost like painting with watercolors. Like, the color is blue, but you don't know where its boundaries are, or it kind of plays by its own rules sometimes. Where, this is a wild analogy, right? Where
I'm
like
trying to imagine a fuzz pedal.
a fuzz pedal is like a watercolor where it just blurs.
Yeah.
It's just a big blurry. There's no sharp lines. There's no sharp edges. It's a blur, right? And kind of plays by its own rules within there. But you can harness that, and you know that that's going to be blue and stuff. Where like a Brown Sound DS1 or like one of those type of a distortion pedal exists, is more like a oil paint where you can get fine lines and crisp lines, and you can get it to do exactly what you want it to do, right? As long as you have the right color, as long as you have the thing that you want. So for me, the chorus, since that's the most important part of the song, is not one that I like to take the chances on by painting with that watercolor paint, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I gotcha.
The chorus is too important to me. I need that to sound the best. I need the beginning of the song to sound good enough that you're in. I need the first couple of seconds to be something interesting enough and nothing abrasive enough that turns you off to it. And then I need the chorus, because I'm basic like that and I like choruses. I need that to be the best sounding part. And then I need the bridge to offer some sort of relief in some way.
Is chorus like is that the only like modulation based effect you like to use on your pedal in your signal chain, or do you use any other, like flange or?
No, you know what? I would actually say it's the opposite. I would actually say modulation for me exists during the verses in order to give them some sort of spice. So if I'm doing the loud, soft, loud thing, and I'm doing the clean guitar thing, that'll be where the phaser sort of exists.
You use a phaser?
Yeah, I like to use like a phaser, real light, barely moving.
Yeah.
But just to give something moving. Or the delay, that'll be where I use any delay. Because again, I get to the chorus and I like them to be real big and crisp. Real big and crisp. I like them. If I do use delay, I use it more as a reverb than a delay. I just use it to add some sort of just atmosphere more than repeating of notes, if that makes sense. I'm not the edge. You know what I mean? I'm using it more. I don't have a reverb pedal. I either use the little bit that's on, I use a Vox amp, which has a great reverb, or I just use a delay, set it up in a way that is reverby.
Yeah, you get enough feedback and the right delay time
to
just
do
kind
that.
of rings out.
Yep.
I like to use. I know. I have a pepperoni. I think it's pepperoni phaser. The Dan Electro.
The Dan Electro.
Yeah, the little blue guy.
Yeah.
And it's one knob, just speed and
Phaser, you said?
yeah.
Okay,
And
yeah.
my like when I think of a phaser, like the only application I feel like is always going to probably I'll find a way to make it work. I feel like if I try to use it with a guitar, like it creates such a specific sound to me that I'm like, unless that's the sound I was trying to go for, I won't just like accidentally find a good place for it with guitar. But with electronic stuff like drum machines, I like to use it on like percussive stuff and do real slow. And then like you can kind of like say like hi-hats or whatever.
Sure.
You could take like a really boring hi-hat
And give it
sound,
some sort of life.
to give a little movement to
Yeah.
it. And you can kind of like just add a little bit more life to something that's can be static. Like a hi-hat pattern.
If I was going to use the phaser on guitar, it would just be on 10. Like if I was really going to use it for like, I would just go full Billy Corgan and just turn it on.
By
you know
10,
what I mean?
So
For
you
most
mean,
of the
like,
time.
you'd recognize that that's been engaged.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it with those hi-hats. It's almost like just enough that if you were to pay attention to it, you'd recognize the phase, but slow and
but if
subtle.
it's in there, it's just like, oh, there's something going on that my brain registers as something, but I couldn't tell you what.
Yeah, it just kind of like sizzles the hi-hats off and on for me, and so that does a little bit of the heavy lifting from trying to make things sound different, having some breaking monotony when you're dealing with like electronic stuff like a drum machine where
Yeah.
like you set a pattern and it's pretty easy to just kind of forget. And
That's
that just
interesting.
rolls.
I've never really. I always sort of like default the phaser to like a guitar effect. I always like. I defaulted to like that Van Halen sound. He always had that heavy overdrive phaser thing going on, or Billy Corgan, or those are like my two phaser dudes. That's the only reason I even own one. I'm pretty sure is because I'm just like, well, they have one. I have to have one.
For me, like when I really got into like when I was in my pedal, my gas phase of like with pedals, before I started like trying to build them and stuff, it was like a lot of my desires were oriented for like hardware. And so like over the years of watching YouTube videos and hearing people talk about methods, I had like accrued like sort of like this like sort of like cookbook of like, oh well, like delays. I really like using delay for with the drums, like going back to like drum machines where like the delay would like the way you could make like a snare and a kick like sort of slap back and just would just make this like cool think of the way the drums sound on Nine Inch Nails Closer. That sort
Yeah.
of that the way that it kind of has this sort of like echo that almost feels more like a heartbeat,
Yeah.
like a murmur or something.
From
and
the Iggy Pop song, right?
yeah, nightclubbing.
Yeah.
And that those sounds, it's so easy with like you just run like a drum beat, like a kick and a snare through a delay, just dial it in. You can find sort of like a really rad place with it pretty easily.
Yeah.
And then you go like, okay, I figured that out. But it's like sometimes it's like it can even be more particular where you're going like it sounds really good with the snare, but it's too much for the kick, and then you start getting into another place. So I want to process the kick with something too, but sometimes like a little delay on either the kick, snare, or both, and then like some modulation on percussion really just like can take a monotonous drum beat and give a little bit of a little life to it where you can kind of
That's-
accept the monotony of a single pattern and like maybe focus on the other thing that you want to do if you're playing guitar to it or
Yeah.
I don't know, what else you'd want to pair up with electronic drums.
It's wild to hear or to like listen to all that because I like disrespect drums and percussion so much. Like they just need to like when I record, they just need to exist. I like never put any thought into like not that I don't put any thought into the way they sound. That's not true at all. I care very much how they sound, but I never take it to the that cake just needs to be baked.
Yeah.
Like I don't put frosting on it. As long as that cake is baked to my liking, it suffices. So I always spend way too much time overthinking other things and then maybe underthinking that because I'm just like, well, as long as they're big. And again, I don't have the creativity or the dynamics or whatever. Like I like a 3-minute long song that's verses and choruses and a bridge. And inside of that little formula that I love so much, the drum stuff just is essentially like it's there. It's serving its purpose for the song or whatever. But if I was in anything that was like where percussion is such a bigger part of the songwriting process, it would be one more thing for me to obsess over.
Getting a drum
And then
machine,
getting it wrong.
having a drum machine where so like I got the Drum Brute, the first one,
Yeah.
not the Impact. I got the Drum Brute by Arturia, and that thing has all these individual outs for the drums, and it just becomes like it's almost like when you get a new piece of gear, the options that gear presents to you create like rabbit holes for you to like, well, now I got to learn about this, and it's like now I can do this because I have something that does that, and you're like, a year before I wasn't even thinking about running a hi-hat by itself through a whole effect pedal.
Isn't that like it's the most insane thing? It's the thing that will drive you the most insane with recording music, right? Is this idea that every time you like learn another thing or introduce another thing, every time you learn that thing has its own rules, and inside of all of that, basically what I'm saying is like you can drive yourself crazy if you think that you need to like become an expert on all of these things that make up, especially stuff like you and me, where we're like the one man band. Like, this is stuff that probably doesn't apply to most musicians, really, is like this concept of like driving yourself insane because you want to add a synthesizer to it. So all of a sudden you're 2 months into researching synthesizers for like something that was just like, oh, I just had I heard a synthesizer in a song and I was like, yeah, you know what? That'd be cool. I'd like to do something like that. I've really never challenged myself to writing a song like that. Yeah, I'd like to do that sometime. And then, yeah, next thing I know, I'm months in and I'm on Reddit threads and people are like talking shit one thing against the other. And then you're just like, yeah, it's got to be this thing. If you're not even using this thing, what's the point? And you're just like, oh my God, I think I was better off not knowing all that. I think that I was better not like trying to get that. I think I was better just like plugging the thing in, hitting a default thing, doing it, being happy with that thing instead of what I've just driven myself to do, which is this. You know what I mean? Like I guess that's what I'm saying with that, is this idea that you'll drive yourself nuts that way.
It's a lot of fun to get really way out there, but then there's something about reeling it back in that sort of like helps.
I don't have that.
I feel like with me, like, you know, there was a phase in my life where I was pursuing a lot of equipment where like now I'm sort of like, really like trying to trim the fat to understand, like, now that I've gone there, now I know how far I want to push those particular elements. It's like, it's so radical to get your hands on some analog synthesizer and to have all these controls to push and manipulate. But then when you realize that you're having so much fun manipulating, you're not really even you're not writing,
you're not
creating as much as you're just exploring. So it's like, after a while, it's like,
that's a good way to put it. You're not you're just exploring.
Yeah. You're like taking
there's something valuable to that exploration.
It's like taking a class,
but you're not leaving anything behind.
Anything you do while in that class doesn't feel credible. Like, you're like, hey guys, look at this cool project I did that was, curated by a curriculum that someone else came up with. So you're almost like having a school project that was like, I've never made this before. Look what I've done. It doesn't have the same credibility as when you do it on your own. And it feels like when you get new gear, you're like on a tangent, like as if you're taking a community college class. And it's like, you might create some work from that like learning curve, but like the real shine comes from what you do with it once you've sort of like mastered
absorbed it.
Yeah. Like when you've gotten it under your belt to the extent that it will be as much as you're going to get out of it, you know, like it doesn't always mean mastering it, but like just knowing like,
well, maybe not mastering it, but again, sometimes I like to like break things down into like, the piano can have 100% mastery to it, right? But if you know that 10% mastery of the piano is 100% of what you need, then 100% master that 10%.
Yeah.
You know? And that's kind of what I'm trying to say, is that I break everything off into these pieces, but sometimes I don't know what that 10% is. Sometimes I think that it's always 100%. And that's where that's kind of the ramble I just went on, is I don't know where to get to that. Sometimes I just need to know that I only need to know that 10%. I only need to know enough of this instrument or this plugin or this software to get the tone of the keyboard sound that I want. I don't need to watch an hour-long video of how it can also do this, that, or the other. Like, then I'll just get back into the weeds, and then I'll second guess myself. I'll start to doubt myself. I'll start to think like, oh, that's not the best version that could be because I didn't master that thing. Like, that's not the best version. And I used to not be that way. Like, it's weird that I sometimes do this to myself as somebody that started with a 4-track tape player or like tape recorder. You know what I mean? Like, where you had so many boundaries. Maybe that's the issue, is I had so many boundaries and trying to work within those boundaries and then expand those boundaries, the ways that you could cheat to expand those boundaries, right? Now it's all limitless. And because it's limitless, I let myself get on these trains that just go seemingly nowhere sometimes, where there's no finished product. Or if it is a finished product, it's never quite finished in my head because, again, I'll doubt my mastery of a certain element of that song, you know? And then in my head, it's no longer the best version that could be.
That's how I feel about every element to any song I make, where I'm just like, well, I'm not proficient on any instrument, or my voice, that being an instrument in itself. You know, it's almost like, almost just sort of like having to like get over myself not being satisfied with how adequate I am on the instruments is like part of the creative process, where you're like, you almost have to like accept I can only go so far, and if I want it to be any better, it becomes out of reach for me, where like it's almost like if I just think like, well, I'll just get like so and so to like do this part for me, you're just going like, what's the reality in that? Like it's almost like maybe I just need to find some other way to do that, instead of like, you know, like sometimes like thinking of wanting to do a cover, and like
Sure.
the guitar is like, oh no, this has like, I can't just do power chords. I'm like, oh wow. I'm like, well, if I can't force it to be power chords, it's like, it's almost like, I am just not doing that, or like I
Yeah.
give up on it. But sometimes I can make it work and fudge it, where it's like, well, I'll just do a power chord, even though that's supposed to be a different chord or something, or something that's a little bit more different or whatever, you know, and just sort of like, you know, pushing it in a way where it's like the best I can do with what I have. And I think like, you know, maybe I could get better at any one of those things if I just spent more time with them. But I also believe that there's probably like a threshold that like once I get to a certain point, like maybe I just won't get better. Maybe I always will just be kind of lousy at like, say like the drums or something, where like
Maybe
yeah,
I've got my 100% out of my 10%.
and if I just like stay in my lane where I'm just going like, I know what I like to do, I know what I have fun doing, and if I can't make it work with what I can do, then it just goes wayside. But like, you know, I oftentimes push for very simple goals with like my recordings and stuff, and that's kind of like where I'm at with like wanting to get this new studio space set up, is like I have a lot of equipment, but I feel like a lot of it will probably just become like a tool in a toolbox that, you know, it would be nice for it to be accessible, but will not be out on the shelf, hooked up, ready to go at any given point in time. And it's okay. Like I used to feel bad. Like I felt like an asshole because I had like some cool ass shit that I just don't use, you know, where like now I'm going like, hey, you know, I bought a steering wheel puller to fix that truck that one time. It's been 12 years. I still have the steering wheel puller tool. Should I just get rid of it because I'm not going to pull a steering wheel off anytime soon? It's like, nah, man, it's a tool. I got a toolbox. I have that sitting in a toolbox. It's like, it's all good. Just relax. And then I start to think about my gear like that. Like, you know, I've got this MIDI controller, the Axiom. It's like, I like the way the keys feel more than the Gaia Roland synth. But the Roland synth is going to be more versatile for work I'm going to be wanting to do, or I see myself doing. When I had both of them set up, I rarely use the weighted key Axiom, you know, MIDI M Audio MIDI controller.
If it doesn't inspire you, it's got to go.
Yeah, like
if you don't look at it and go like that, I want to create with that like now, like or I bought that with a purpose. I heard a hero of mine use this thing. Like if it doesn't inspire you anymore, like I always sort of refer to this as kind of like paying your dues. I feel like every musician that gets as far as we have in terms of like just years in, rather, I see it at my work a lot too. I see it like you just got to pay your dues, I call it, where you have that phase where you read everything and need to absorb everything and need to be a snob about everything and need to form some stupid opinions and sort of have that, and then have some sort of awakening, or yes, where you're just like, you know what? I did all of that and I found myself in a different situation, or happiest, or was actually finishing things when it was just this and this, right? Where you just like trim the fat, where you just like only these handful of things inspire me. Like I can't tell you how much gear I've had over the years. So much gear, so much gear. Like I buy so much gear, and right now, the computer, the Focusrite into the computer, the handful of guitar pedals, 2 guitars, bass, and my 1 MIDI controller. That's all I really use. And then even all of that stuff, the MIDI stuff, I try to use so sparingly I try not even like if I don't even really have to bust out that MIDI controller, I don't even do it because that's the stuff I'll get lost in because it's the stuff that I have the least amount of mastery on. So that's the stuff that I end up chasing. Right.
They're also very versatile, so you can kind of just spend so much time exploring.
It's
soft synths
because
galore.
of that, and I'm not good at. That's the instrument I'm the weakest at. Is anything key related? So it's equal parts exploring sounds and tones, and then just trying to figure it out. Of learning, of just like where I feel like the guitar is as good as I'm ever gonna get. Bass is as good as I'm gonna get. I could play the drums a little more. I could just be a little more practiced. But in terms of like skill, I'm not getting any better. I'm not learning any new tricks.
Yeah.
Right. I'm the drummer. I've always been the bass player. I've always been the guitar player, the singer. I know my own limits on my voice. I've really learned the master, the capo, and change keys and tunings to match what I know is my voice. Right. I get that stuff figured out. Get all that stuff figured out first. And then the keyboards, they come in and I get just lost in them. It's the thing that I end up, spending the most amount of time. It's the thing that might derail a project for me because the keyboard also recently has been very inspiring to me. It also is the thing that I listen to. I listen to a lot of music with a lot of keys and piano stuff and 80s. I listen to so much Gary Newman and Two-Way Army and stuff like that is so synth and key heavy, and it inspires me to want to make music. And
gotta get a Moog.
It's the music that I end up not even being able to do. Like I don't think I have that wiring. Like I try. I get out the synthesizer, I get some sounds, I learn how to play a Van Halen song on it, and then I just take that as my win and go away, and nothing new or creative comes from it. Where then I'll just pick up the guitar, put my hand and put my fingers in 4 random spots on the neck and be like, I can work with that. I got something there.
Have you ran that keyboard through any effects pedals yet? Like the overdrive or your super fuzz or anything?
I ran it through the, what's it called? The Way Huge Delay. The big blue box.
Llama?
Is it a llama? Aqua? No, that's like a chorus.
Aquapus.
Yeah, the Aquapus. No, that's like a whatever their delay is. That's got a stupid name.
Yeah,
right.
A pickle.
The swollen pickle.
Yeah,
that's like their big muff. I think.
Even
though it's green, it should be a tube screamer, right?
Yeah,
they're breaking the rule.
Yeah,
they have a green guitar pedal that is not a tube screamer.
As a kind of a tangent, I feel like the naming of pedals is like one of the reasons why I like was inspired to want to like build pedals was just because of how much it's like naming a song or an album, where it's like you can almost be like, I want to make this pedal because this name that I came up with would be so cool to make that a pedal.
Yeah. Oh man, I can't tell you how many times I've written a song from the title up. You know what I mean?
So there's tape. When we hung out last, we went to that the Restore, which is like the thrift place kind of like, and I picked up a cassette tape. It was called Inner Sanctum, and it was one of these like collection tapes that had a radio broadcast from like early mid 20th century, probably like 40s or something, where they would do this whole like story, and it was like a drama, like a crime drama, and they do all the sound effects, and it's all like, old school. They're just using mics and little,
all the Foley work.
Yeah, and it was like I've been listening to that. It's just been in the tape deck in the car, and when it ends, it just flips to the one side and just goes over, and it's like I've never really fully digested it, but I'll be in and out of like what they're saying and doing. And there was a line in there. I was like, that would totally be an awesome song. Maybe like an album title. But it was like this dude, he's like, all of a sudden it's like, he's like, oh, he's shocked by this presence of this other dude. He's like, I thought you were dead. And the other guy is like, no, I'm not dead. He's like, go ahead, touch me. Feel how dead I am. And I was like, whoa.
Feel how dead I am?
Feel how dead I am. I was like, and I'm like, captured that note, and so I was like, that could be a cool song title. And I was like, maybe even just like an album title or just like a title in general that will inspire me.
Yeah,
to like that's like cryptic. It's like it tickles the brain because of its sort of juxtaposition of like, you're
dead.
If you're dead, you wouldn't be requesting to someone to touch you or whatever. So it's sort of like the play on words of like how
it's also like if you wanted to go deeply metaphorical. it is that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That could stand for so many things. No,
So-
I that just you saying it was like I hope that is where he's going with
Yeah.
that, because
Touch me. Feel how dead I am.
yeah, that's how it comes for me too. That's it. Sometimes is like a misheard something.
Yes.
A customer will say something wrong. Like I get so many, just like I have conversations because I work in retail. So you just chat with people, and sometimes people are in a rush. People's brains are elsewhere. They'll just say something weird. They'll respond in a weird way to something because they didn't quite hear you because they're on the phone. And sometimes they walk away and you'll just be like, get out your notes section of your phone and jot down a couple of those things. And you're just like, or sometimes you'll just hear like I'll hear a sentence, and this is how weird I come to it sometimes, is I'll hear a sentence said and I'll try to rhyme to it with like the same rhythm.
Syllables and stuff.
Yeah. And that can sometimes just having the first two lines that rhyme can sometimes be just enough. Sometimes there can be just a melody hidden in just the way they said it. Like, I know that sounds weird, but like sometimes if they just say like, have a nice day, just a musical way, that right there, like there's two lines that have like you almost feel like it was like, there's A, B, where's that C and D to that? I know it's in there.
Yeah.
Let me just grab that. Even though Have a Nice Day would not be a good song title, but sometimes it is song title worthy.
How do you how like in this stage of your life, in the recent efforts that you may have made, how do you sort of go about writing, say, like potential lyric like words for maybe music that you've composed? Do you have any sort of approach to it that is sort of you repeat that, like that's kind of like the way you've been doing it?
Oh yeah, I have rules to that. I have rules to that because, or maybe not rules, but I have specific things that I go back to all the time because I'm very of a formula. I'm very of the same when it comes to like my songwriting process, right? And lyrics are always last, always the least important part. The title is more important than the lyrics to me. The title is more important than the lyrics. And then I do this silly thing oftentimes where I won't put the title in the song. So as important as much pressure and as much importance as I place upon the title, sometimes I don't even incorporate it fully, right? Or employ it fully into the song.
It's almost like metaphorical to the lyrics or something.
I
Like you can make the connection in your head, but it doesn't necessarily have to use that word then in the
yeah,
actual...
it has to represent a mood. It has to represent a look. I feel like I grew up in an era, and my idols, to get off on a slight tangent, all of my idols were so good at an image, and that included the full package. That included like the lyrics matching the song titles, matching the music videos, matching the t-shirt look, like almost like it was their own little like cinematic universes. Like you could live in the Smashing Pumpkins cinematic universe.
And their own vein of aesthetic.
Yeah, and you knew Mayonnaise was a Smashing Pumpkins song without knowing it. Like it just was like, it's a weird word, but like out of context, it's it's food or whatever, but like it fits everything else they're doing to a point where I don't even question the fact that he has a song called Mayonnaise. Like it's never been weird to me, right? Because it's like, oh no, that I can see it written in that font, that Murder, She Wrote font that they used.
Yeah. Isn't that sort of, didn't they kind of use that? Isn't that sort of similar to the titling on Melancholy? Where they almost had like these embellishments with like the legs of the letters kind of sweep out.
Yeah, they had this like, I don't want to call it steampunk because I can't stand steampunk.
Looks like fairy lettering.
But it's got like this, it's got this like sort of slightly like old Hollywood something to it that I
flappers.
Yeah, 1920s, something about it, like that aesthetic that he really like tapped into, where that you could have a song called Jelly Belly And I don't question it in a weird way because it's like, no, that just weirdly fits in the Billy Corgan cinematic universe. Same with,
Is there a Pumpkin song called Jelly Belly?
right? I'm pretty sure there is.
Is that on Siamese Dream?
I think it's on Melancholy. Double check me. I'm not,
Okay, well, if it's on Melancholy,
there's 40 songs on 48
yeah,
songs.
that's I get lost on that because
Yeah,
there's a lot on there. You're just going like
I'm trying to pull the most ridiculous one, and that was the one that popped in my
Jelly
head.
Belly. It's like, oh man,
Hold
believe that.
on. Let's fact check that in real time.
yeah, because that's a double disc. So to me, there are a lot of songs in there that didn't stick for me, but like.
But while I'm looking this up, I can also talk like I also grew up very fast and heavy in the Kurt Cobain cinematic universe, I'll call it, where I could just hear the word sliver and know that that's related to Nirvana, that was I could see that in that font. I could see any of Kurt Cobain's song titles in that Nirvana font. And I could tell you if you were making it up. Like I could tell like through his song titles and his lyrics, you learned his sensibilities. And then when you would hear like a parody or something where somebody would be like I can't quite explain. I'm trying to think of like what would be a fake Nirvana song title, like The Disease Swarms In. It sounds like it would be like some guy mocking a Nirvana song where you just would be like, that's like a parody version of it. Like it's like I know instantly that that's not. Hold on. Jelly Belly. Yeah.
Dang.
I don't know why. It's such a. That's what I'm saying. The songs are so stupidly titled that you accept them because you know the Billy Corgan thing.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like that's why you know a song title when you hear it, because it's your thing. And when I hear a song title, because that's my thing, right? Like my songs exist in my cinematic universe. You know what I mean? Like I can hear a song title and know like I can see that on the back of my record. I can see that. I can see a stylized version of that. I have a song title that's the dumbest song title. It's called "We Were in Buffalo." Bracket this time, double bracket last year. We were in Buffalo.
And they will know us by the trail of dead.
And it's just like in my head, it was like so like me to like and this won't have anything to do with Buffalo. Like this is a vibe. Like I want you to hear the title "We Were in Buffalo this time last year" and almost make it seem like those brackets almost are like regret. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they add a sadness just in the title, right? And you already know the vibe of what I was trying to get. I don't have to mention Buffalo once in the song. I can just do my normal word vomit. Is what I always call it. The lyrics, back to the answering the question, the bigger question you even asked is,
you like steno pad and like you using like a writing tool? Do you like type on a?
No,
on
I
a
use
phone?
nope. I'm a spiral notebook and like a pleasing pen. No cheap, like I have to have a pen I like.
So I was gonna say, I was like kind of the details. I was like,
thing.
like, oh, pencils, pens.
No. It's got to be a very specific pen. Like they stay like tucked in the spirals of the notebook itself, so I can. They have to be able to move quick because, as you can probably tell from just listening to me speak, the words come out faster than my brain. So same when I'm writing it down. So it has to be able to keep up with my own fast brain.
I just got into using top spirals, being left-handed. Like normal spirals have always been like
Yeah.
kind of uncomfortable.
Sure.
And when I got my hands on a top spiral around like back to school, like with just
Song
seeing
title.
more stuff in the in places I was at where it's like, oh look, a top spiral, it's only like $1 or $2, and I'm like, I want to get that. Now I'm like, man, I think for now I'm going to just buy it because I've been buying spirals for years now, and I've got like a lot of just typical spirals, and it would be like I'd get multi-packs and they're like different color covers, but like the same page type and everything. And I started to create like a color coding for like so all my red spirals are all my electronics notes. And then yellow spiral is free writing, which is like that's where I'd put like ideas for songs, lyrics, titles, names, etc. Then I had a green one, which was like music, and that was like music ideas, like oh, use the phaser pedal on your hi hat, see what that sounds like. And it would be like, so when I was like trying to do a project, I could source the music spiral for like a jumping point for like, oh yeah, I never did try running that through a compressor. I want to try that. Let me try that. And it could jumpstart, some recording. And then, I had like, I feel like there was like a fourth one. Like, I think I was using black for like something else. I don't know. But those are the three main ones that it was, electronics, free writing, and music. Black became visuals. So like I'm like, oh, I want to take a picture of me standing in front of that one thing in that one location, and it would be like if I write this in the notebook, I'll actually have like or like a video concept for like a music video or demo videos for the pedals. It would be like I had a visual book, so all the visual ideas would be into that. But the ones that got the most action was like electronics, and free writing. And those are pretty well the ones that get the most dog-eared. And I've gone through the most with electronics. I've probably got like 4 or 5 red spirals filled up by this point in just a few years. But so with lyric writing, in the last sort of phase I was having, since I've got a collection of typewriters, I kind of got this idea in my head that like writing through a typewriter used my brain differently than writing. Like I could actually spit words out faster typing, and I'm a okay touch typer.
Okay.
And so I'm not like a little pecker or whatever. And I can actually like use all fingers while typing. And because of that, think about like your brain having to fire off the signals to make all those fingers work versus when you're writing, you're just like clamping your finger and your thumb on a
they're just along for the ride. Your brain just pushes it along.
And like the one hand's just sitting there all like holding a pad down or something. So it's like you're channeling all that your speed's only coming out through like a fraction of your digits. So like by using all your fingers, you can like get a word a little bit quicker out versus like one letter at a time. It's almost like you're like, bah, 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 bah. And I just felt like there's something potentially different about writing with the typewriter, and it was just something I didn't practice that often in terms of like free writing with the typewriter. But when I was collecting them in that eBay phase I had for like the summer of 2019 is when I got like about a dozen manual typewriters and from different eras and stuff, and like learned and I appreciated the nuances of their different builds and things. They're all manual, but there's just like differences from each one that I like, and I have preferences and such. But getting good on the typewriter, it was almost like I was just free writing a lot, and just like almost like diary type shit.
Sure.
But then the last
just like stream of consciousness.
Yeah, I would do that, like and it was just like it just felt different than just handwriting. But I do handwriting and stuff too with like free writing still. But this summer I was doing I did a fair amount of like rhyming and like poem building, reading,
like writing with a purpose.
Like I was reading the Ogden Nash, a collection of Ogden Nash stuff, and I actually was just like taking some of those poems and using the structure of them and being like, the rhyming structure in here is different than what I would normally do.
Oh, geez,
so then I just try to like take that formula and just like copy the same syllable kind of not syllable, but like almost like the amount of words and where the rhymes fell instead of just going A B A B A B. And it was really fun to create.
It's a great way to get yourself out of some. Man, and I've written entire songs. I will never confess. I won't say names. I've written entire songs that were based on me writing different lyrics to a song I like. Mm-hmm. Where I just was like, oh, I'll write a third verse to that in that same vocal. That same, in order to know where everything is, I'll write it in that same melody. I'll write it with that same rhyme pattern. I was trying to think what's like a simple song, like the just to go to like Basket Case, Green Day's Basket Case. The "Do you have the time to listen to me whine?" I would just come up with my own version of just like, I was laying home alone, listening for the phone, and I'll write that down, and I'll forget about it. I'll write that verse down. I'll forget about it, and at some point I'll forget the context. It'll just be words on a page that say I was laying home alone, waiting by the phone, and I'll go, hopefully it'll be better than that. But I'll think to myself like, oh, okay, I was channeling some feeling or something there. I had a song stuck in my head, but I was thinking something different. And then I'll pick up a guitar and then I'll see those words and I'll just maybe have this riff thing I'm working on. And then I'll see if they can work together. I always sort of start there. I don't have a lot of success there, but it is a trick that I go to often enough that it's a trick where I'll just, words on a page that were probably written to a popular song. Just to keep me sort of like, oh, I never think to do the thing there. Or, God, I always like the way I just don't have it. Like, I'm not wired that way to like go into the pre-chorus like that, but I really like that song does it. So I'll just like essentially do my version, just like kind of rip it off. And then at some point I'll forget that it was that. Even if I want to remember it sometimes I'll sit there and try to force it. Sometimes I'll be reading that going like, what was that? What did this belong to?
Would you say that those sources are typically from a particular genre, or more specifically, do you ever source inspiration lyrically based, like from hip hop or rap? Do you ever like take like a rap and just be like, man, that inspired me to want to not copy, but like find my own way of like the syllable play and rhyme scheme.
I'm blind.
Those rhymes.
I'm blind to. It's something I've always been jealous of because I feel like I do have this. I don't call it expertise. But I do have this ear in certain genres. And I don't have it for hip hop, which is, I've always been jealous of people that are able to tell minute differences between people's deliveries and things. I just don't have that as much. I feel like there are experts that can look at a rhyme on paper and tell you who it is without knowing. They can just like read it and go like, oh yeah, there's a word that person uses a lot, or oh yeah, they've always liked that something. So mine is always typically in admiration when I listen to that. When I hear like hip hop stuff like that, I always think to myself like, man, they are working sometimes with less. They don't have a guitar melody sometimes to sit on top of. They help sort of guide the way. Sometimes these melodies and stuff are completely organic, or then the rhyme scheme hits in a way where it's like they had not like just the most blankest, whitest sheet of paper to begin working with and came up with that. I can't do that. I need follow the dots. I need some dots on that page at least, or at least need to know the size of the paper and the paints that I can work within.
It's kind of crazy.
Hip hop is a little more of like it's so everything and nothing at the same time. It exists in such a way that it can be so minimalist or so over, where the artists themselves cannot be anybody you hear on a microphone. You know what I mean? And yet it's a genre that is dominated by the voice. I'm always just fascinated by it and enthralled by it and blind to so much of it that I appreciate those who get the subtle nuances. And I'm jealous of it in a way, because I know that I know those subtle nuances of all of my dumb stuff. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I've printed out a lot of I've printed out lyrics for songs, trying to better understand how those songs were, like what's going on here. Like, and with hip hop lyrics and rap and stuff, there's like, it's just so dense. A lot of times, like some of the examples that I've gone to that extreme with, it's like it fills the whole page up with like, the chorus is almost like as simple as like 2 lines, and then the verses are these like blocks.
Yeah.
And then it's like with music that is not in that genre, like say just more traditional, like rock like music
That's
that
an
I grew
album's
up
worth
on.
of material.
Yeah, like you look in that song, you're going like they've stretched 4 lines
Yeah.
out for like a verse where they're like singing, and there's it just like it makes it seem so much easier to achieve like writing like a
The chorus of Lithium is just him saying, yeah.
yeah, you know, where they you can stretch it and have something that is like totally acceptable by the audience that you're, you know, that it's getting out to, and that you can have, you know, such a positive reception from something as so minimalist as shouting
Yeah.
you know. And then like where like the bars of like hip hop, man, like you can, it's like every time you listen to it, it's almost like who knows what line it hits you, and you're
Yeah,
like, I never
100%.
holy crap, like they were saying that it's like so dense, it's like a multivitamin versus a lunch meat sandwich, you know.
And you can get so much from it. You're being educated. It's not like a lot of times I'm getting references. It's kind of like revisiting a movie every so often, and like, oh, I didn't know that actor was in there. Like all of a sudden, like I have a little more information, and now I know who Rod Carew is, and now I hear the song, and I go, oh, I get that now.
Beastie Boys.
Exactly. Like, but at one point in my life, I knew that song and didn't know the baseball player. And then at one point it swapped. You know what I mean? Like I don't get that from rock music. I don't get that from like, I don't hear Fleetwood Mac's The Chain and I go, oh, I know The Chain now.
You know, Nirvana, back with Nirvana, I think Cobain's lyrics, there's quite a few of them that like, you know, I heard so many times, and then eventually got to a point where like something was like, oh, that's what he was talking about?
Oh, yeah,
You know,
yeah,
like, isn't there like
That is why-
Cohen or something referring to like Leonard Cohen?
Leonard Cohen afterward.
Yeah, and like when I finally like absorbed some Leonard Cohen, you're just going like, I'm like, oh, like I have like a little bit of a frame of reference here where like I've probably heard those lyrics though.
But that was like a hip hop thing where he like name dropped a specific reference.
Yeah.
It was like a very hip hop thing for Kurt Cobain to do because you
Yeah.
can't think of him doing it that much more often.
Yeah.
So like, but see, that's the education. That's what I'm saying. You come back to it, you revisit it these years. Now, here's something interesting, and this is fresh in my mind because I looked this up yesterday. Right? I want to talk. Here's a weird tangent. The Tupac Shakur song "California Love."
I just had it in my head the other day. I was
Okay,
thinking
good,
about
good,
Tupac.
good. So it's fresh in your head?
Yeah.
Let's talk about it for a second because I have things that I think are wild about it. That song is 4 minutes and 55 seconds long.
Good Lord, that's a long song for.
Here's the cool thing. Who do you associate with that song?
I just think about like this, like that was like a special song because it was like it mixed all these popular names. Like, doesn't Dre in that?
Sure. Yep.
Was Busta Rhymes in that?
Nope. Biggie? Nope.
No, why would in my mind, I'm just thinking like there was multiple heads in that.
You think of the video, right? The desert.
Yeah. I'm thinking like it's almost like this post-apocalyptic vibe.
Like
where
a Mad
they're, like-
Max.
Yeah.
All right. So here's some things about it that are interesting.
Biggie wouldn't have been it. Why did I say that?
Shoot. So here's the couple of things about
Snoop Dogg?
Nope.
No.
It is literally only those two. Here's the craziest part about that song. It is a Tupac song. It's on Tupacalypse now. Anyway, I think it's on that. All Eyes on. Anyway, it's on a Tupac record. It's a Tupac song. Tupac does not appear on the song until 2 minutes and 20 seconds in. Tupac is done at the 2 minute and 55 second mark. You never hear his voice again, except for a couple little shouts in the background. It is a Tupac song. He appears on for less than 40 seconds of a 5 minute long song.
So is Dre carrying most of that in like verses or
He
something?
sings the first verse, which is interesting, right?
Uh-huh.
How often does the guest get the first verse?
I feel like I think of that as that's a theme that I think of in hip hop though, where they almost are like you have a feature, the feature's sort of the opening act, and then the actual
I feel like that's more of an
comes
old
in
school
second-
thing, right?
second verse.
Like it feels old school because I feel like there was a couple Tribe Called Quest songs where you didn't hear those guys until the end when they would have buddies, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't think you hear Q-Tip until the 10 minutes into what's it called. So anyway, it is just interesting that it was a hit song credited to Tupac that you don't hear Tupac until that deep in, for like a single. You only hear him for that many seconds, right? And then the rest of it is just like the second half of that song is just like,
The chorus.
no, just them like talking. Like it's like just remember they're just like shouting city names and things. Like it's just like one of the most interesting hit songs. It has literally 500 million streams. But why I bring this all up is here's where my entire thought comes down to this. Has there ever been a better use of 40 seconds in music history than Tupac's 40 seconds in California Love? Right?
One of the most memorable Tupac
Huge
songs for
song.
me is
Huge
the
video.
song. He's only in it for like seconds of the song.
Huge video. He got to fly out.
Yeah.
They got to have all that fun doing this huge music video where he got to lip sync for 10 seconds. Right? It becomes this iconic whatever. It's also, this is something that's been weird about the song to me. I always want to call it California Dreaming. The mamas and the papas
Yeah.
and stuff. And I often wondered why I did that every time. His first line is California Dreaming.
What's the
Tupac.
song? What's it actually called? It's just
It's called California Love.
California Love.
But Tupac's very first line, California Dreamin', is literally says California. So in my brain, it has just become California Dreamin'. So I always have this like Mandela effect as well with the song title, is that I never get it right that it's California Love. But just I listened to the song recently and just like maybe overthought about it, looked up some things, timed out the Tupac stuff because I was like listening to it going like, okay, we're doing the California knows how to party. Like, and this is kind of going, and this is kind of going, and this is kind of going. And then, okay, there's Dr. Dre. Okay, there's his verse. Also, his verse is, man, this might be controversial for coming from just me. I think it's a little clunkier than you remember it being. Follow the lyrics along with it next time.
It's been a minute since I actually listened to it.
It feels clunky to me.
I can visualize like that Mad Max video, but like I can't even think of any lines. And
The Tupac stuff feels
I
smooth.
can hear that, but I couldn't pull any other lines.
The like it feels like 3/4 of the way through the Dr. Dre stuff, it gets kind of clunky to me. Well, whatever, I'm just nitpicking at this point. But yeah,
Think about the era. So that was like what? That was before. That was probably what after the Chronic for Dre, but before 2001. And
I think it was Tupac's last stand.
Yeah, and then yes. A side note: it seems like that the '90s really had some in the hip hop genre specifically, music videos were like
it was king.
Could sometimes just go all out, where they were like mini movies.
Yeah, it was king. Music video was king.
And it wasn't just one or two players in that game. It seemed like across the board, for like a good stretch of that decade, maybe not so much like right into the early 90s, but like by like 93, 94, it seemed like by like 95, 96, you started having like mini movies and music videos.
There are people that will tell you that's even wrong. I feel like there are people, I've read enough think pieces about the music video because it's some obsession of mine, that'll tell you that by the 90s the music video was dead. But there are even people that think that like that wasn't even the era. You know what I mean? Yeah, that the 80s, that we had Thriller, we had John Landis, like actual Hollywood directors directing these things, or the early Madonna videos, and like I don't know,
we had our Yankovic.
You had these like the videos that became more iconic for like maybe less so
Sledgehammer.
Yeah, like maybe less so for like the story and stuff, but more for just the gigantic iconicness of them, the iconography of them. The music video was such a deal breaker, game changer. It ended careers. Pretty much anything that was popular in the 70s that wasn't pretty. If it existed in the 70s and wasn't pretty enough to survive into the music video, looking at a lot of those shitty rock bands and stuff like that, it didn't cross over, and it was over. It was a new ball game. Now the 80s are here. Now you have to look as good as you sound. You have to that thing we were talking about earlier, that Billy Corgan, Kurt Cobain, like those guys, they had a vision for the music videos that matched the vision for the records, that matched the vision for their typography, which matched the vision for their song titles. All of that stuff was like a glove. It all had these fingers, and the music video became such a big finger on that glove for a long time that it almost like I'm pretty sure I've read things or heard things from Pearl Jam where they're just like, yeah, we probably could have played the game a little better now that in hindsight, that what did we have to lose? You know what I mean? Like the couple of people that feel like they rebelled against it, even to this day, are like, meh, yeah, it was a tool. It was a great tool.
I remember that Jeremy video.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They maybe they just thought they had dipped in with their we're not going to get any better than this. This one entered the pop culture fray. This entered that like, oh, where do you go from here?
There's so, man, to me, there's a lot, I can think of a lot of good 80s videos, but for me, it almost seems, I guess I'm partial because of the age that I was in.
Yeah,
but
for
the
sure.
impact of music videos in the 90s for me was
for me, it's the same. I wasn't saying
crazy.
that to like disagree. Like, I agree that the 90s videos were the peak.
Well, I'm just waxing on just being like, just the nostalgia of just like how exciting it was seeing a new music video when you're like a youth in the 90s. Growing up, it's like I feel like it makes me like biased or partial to that decade where like the 80s, it was like a very vague recollection of like, Madonna music videos, Michael Jackson videos. Yeah. You see Sledgehammer.
You know what they did that was like, it felt like it was perfect. They did with MTV specifically. Do you remember that gap? There was like, I don't know how long that gap is, but there was a slight gap from when the music video started and then when the little information block would come up. It wasn't at the same time.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah, so it would be almost like, that wasn't always an instantly in the first frame.
No, you would see the girl's foot for Teen Spirit first, and then the thing would come on, and then it would also fade before the video ended too.
Yeah,
it would fade out. I can't remember exactly that time, but it was short, right? That was genius. That was like the most, like, the anticipation that would build the first time you were like looking forward to something was so awesome, and like something that can't be reconstructed today. This like to see a visual image and just be like, okay, I don't know what this is. What's this? What's this? What's this? In that split second of, I don't recognize this. This could be my favorite band. Is such magic. In that split second, there's a magic from seeing a music video the first time when you're just, at least for me, when you're a kid and you're obsessively watching and you're waiting for the next video from your favorite bands, and they're coming because your favorite bands are the bands being played on MTV. So you're being rewarded often, right? So you're just waiting for that next reward of a new music video by your favorite band. And that time where you all of a sudden see that image of something first you don't recognize, and then those words come up and they say Pearl Jam, and you're just like, whoa, I don't know this. Even more exciting when song title, then album title, and that album title's a new word, and you're just like, Insomniac? What's that? Oh, geez. Right? That, like, the idea, whoever is responsible for putting that small, just like, oh, don't just have the information right with the video start. Tease it, just is like one of my favorite like things that I've never been able to quite describe.
I completely understand. There's something about the psychological sort of play with the anticipation of it and having that right timing where, like, if it was right on the bat as soon as it started, it wouldn't even really tickle your brain in that way.
And those first seconds wouldn't hit.
Yeah,
you wouldn't know the shoe.
Yeah. You're
not looking for that. Your face would be looking down left of the MTV the whole time, but instead they let you see like, oh, what's this? Oh, and then this comes up. Oh,
it's almost like they're playing into your brain, becoming curious and needing to know what's going on. Oh, where if it was right off the bat or like a minute and a half into it, it wouldn't have the same effect.
Or if they had to wait till the end.
Yeah.
Where you would just be like, I don't have the patience for this.
Yeah. It's like, if it was only at the end, you probably would lose so many more, people understanding who or what it is because they just,
And
it's that video that does that thing. But like in the beginning, they're going like, oh yeah, the Lemonheads video.
But they were also smart by making it go away too, because then if you did come in or whatever, you were forced. They had it figured out in such a way. It was so masterful.
Well, there's MTV, but there's other ones too. What was it? Wasn't there like Much Music?
Much Music.
Wasn't there another one?
There was Fuse TV
I
or
remember
whatever
Fuse.
it was, which I think was Canadian.
You did Much Music. That was Canadian.
I think maybe Much Music and Fuse may have been the same thing.
So did Much Music do the same thing with the titling? Did they kind of?
I don't know.
It almost felt like they were just a little different. Where like
I'm sure they had their twist on it.
where the titling came in.
Maybe it did like a sports ticker where it came like rolled across the bottom or something. It was going to feel like they always were trying to do their thing, maybe, or maybe they just ripped it off because the MTV model was it changed the world. It changed music. MTV. I can't imagine in 1981 when they're launching MTV that in 2001 where they own most of Times Square at that point are responsible for literally like pop tastemakers left and right, not just music, but pop culture in general, is such a wild journey to an art form that built on the back of an art form that still to this day weirdly feels disrespected. But so much culture and stuff was MTV. It was like, it was just, even if you didn't, it did. Even if you didn't care, it still infiltrated your life as a young person in the 90s.
Yeah, definitely. Because it kind of like filled the gap of like, not gap, but it was like a stepping stone from like adolescence where like cartoons were like your diet. And then it was like, for me, I felt like with cable access, or having access to cable channel, more premium content from things like, I had Nickelodeon, through cable when I was a kid and Cartoon Network. But then it was like, once those things were starting to become less interesting, it was like MTV was like this segue to become like, like a teenager where there was like, individualism, or not individualism, but like stuff that was like interesting to me that I could pick from.
Yeah. You always got to be slightly behind, right? You're always looking forward. So like when I was a little kid, I was watching Saved by the Bell. They were older than me because I was looking to that. You as a kid think that you're constantly growing because you are, but so you're constantly looking forward. And me, I was real harsh on that stuff. I was really, maybe having a little brother, could see a gap between me and him, even though it was as slight as a gap as they can really be since we're so close in age. But I instantly saw the stuff that my brother liked as stuff for little kids. I instantly, I remember the Power Rangers debuting and just going like, that's for babies, because my brother was interested in it. You know what I mean? I was in the right, it should have been my friends were interested in it, but it was something about, I had a little brother and I was watching MTV and I was like trying to grow up watching 90210. I'm watching teenagers when I'm just before them and wanting to be them, that anything that felt like was aimed at somebody younger was like out. So I abandoned ship. When we got MTV, it was I was on board. It feels like this entire thing is me just fanboying about MTV, which I will gladly do. I have no shame. Gladly fanboy. Best years of my life were fanboying. Some of my favorite. I saw so much stuff through that. I learned so many things. I'm pretty sure all of my politics and worldviews and stuff were I learned about AIDS through the real world. That was my education for that stuff. And I learned how to deal with grief and loss by all of my idols dying in the 90s. And then it shaped so much, for good or bad. I'm sure it's directly responsible for my entire awful attention span. Maybe the 3-minute music video is peak art for me because it's the length of my attention span.
Yeah.
That said, there are some incredible, if you have a music video that's got my attention or whatever, I'll watch through. I'll watch all however many minutes of Paranoid Android. I'll watch that through the end. And I'm not a Radiohead guy. but that is a perfect blending of a music video of a band, another band that exists in their cinematic universe, right? Radiohead. I can hear a Radiohead song title and know it's a Radiohead song title before I know it's a Radiohead song title.
Paranoid Android.
Right there is a 90s Radiohead song title.
Karma Police.
Yep.
Oh, hey, what's up? I was just like doing some editing and I just felt like this video was way too long. So I'm going to cut a whole bunch of it out and I'm going to just kind of get it to a different later point in our capture here. And it's going to be kind of abrupt. But I was aiming for like an hour on this one and we went for over 3. So I'm going to try to trim it to get like, sort of around 2 hours. And most of the stuff that was, that I'm cutting out, a lot of it's kind of similar to things that we were discussing in our previous conversation. So, maybe it was a little redundant anyway, at least on my end. So I'm going to, just insert this clip. And next up, let's talk about grocery stores. I don't feel like going grocery shopping today or something.
But there's also like this beauty in this idea of
going to this freaking grocery store.
I
love going to the grocery store, by the way. I like doing that. I have a blast.
I have a love-hate. I like going there. I find myself when I get there, I get overwhelmed, and at some point it becomes anxiety. I like being out of the house, and I like going places, and I like walking around. I like my headphones.
I hate self-checkout.
Not a self-checkout guy?
I don't like it. I did it today and it was just fine. But like I've had enough like stupid experiences where it's like
I'm a master.
Last couple times I did like a big load at the grocery store. I went through the checkout line. I kind of felt I don't know. It was kind of weird with that, like anxiety where it was almost like the register girl was like kind of like openly complaining about like having to do the cans in a way where like her friend came over and said, "Oh, I'll help you." And I started to feel bad, like them, like moving the items to scan and then put it into the bag. Then like she was like saying, she's like, like talking about, I was kind of trying not to be too aware in a way, but it was almost like, I swear I thought she was like saying to her, like, really needing someone to come and alleviate her because she has, like, she was just really tired or something and needing, like, hadn't had her break yet. Like, you almost felt bad, like, oh, was I like, did I swoop in when she was just about to turn the light off and be done? Yeah. And like her wrists are sore and like I have like
probably
15 canned goods right now for her to have to.
And
swipe.
I'm sympathetic to you, but
but I'm like also just being like, maybe I'm just being I don't know, like, is it like I'm just being too self-conscious or something? I'm just going like
maybe just
I'm just slightly, but you're also like in that moment you're also just kind of just standing there because you're like, if she's swiping and doing that and you're just like, I've already loaded everything up onto the conveyor belt, you're just sort of like waiting there for her to be done.
Do
and
your job
like,
now.
Yeah. And it's kind of like, that's kind of odd, but at the same time I just like, there's just sometimes where you're just like, I don't know, like with self-checkout, there's been, I experiences where in my shoes with like having a child around, they like to help. They start putting things on or they're taking the bags off before you've like put something in. And it's like, put the item in and you have to wait for an associate to come over and like clear you.
So I didn't. I was thinking about that.
If you're solo, you can be like, you got a game that you can get down tight.
I love the self-checkout because my experience is the exact, like I only have my headphones in. I don't want to interact with anybody. Like I have the headphones in to the Walmart or the grocery store so I can soundtrack my shopping quest, right? I get in, I have it mastered where I know scan, wait, scan. The only time that I know not to go through the self-checkout now is if you're buying spray paint or medicine where somebody has to do the 18 or whatever, because then I do have to flag somebody over. But I now have mastered the self-checkout in a way that I feel guilty about. Another argument or another discussion about automation and jobs and stuff for another day.
Yeah.
But my social anxiety and anxiety disorders prefer the quick moving, don't interact with anybody, self-checkout, where I also, because I know I'm not up to anything, don't feel guilty about the way that I do it. I'm not stealing or anything. So the way that I can like walk through there, not look at anybody, do my thing. I never feel like I'm doing anything wrong. Just show the receipt and just walk. There's a confidence that I have there. Not that I don't have that when somebody checks me out, but oftentimes in the self-check, I feel judged sometimes going through a checkout. I feel like people are like looking at the stuff I buy, looking at the amount of money that I spend, looking at the type of card that I'm using to spend it. I feel like there's this like judgment that comes with it that I'm not great with. I feel like, or if they've seen me there, because I don't big grocery shop. I grocery shop a couple times a week, just kind of as needed. So then I also feel like they're like talking about me. So the more that I just kind of stay anonymous, the better. The more that I just don't interact with people. So maybe I just am just a face in the crowd. Is the better. To the point where I put thought into that. I weirdly think about like, I'll see the same face in the grocery store and be like, that person definitely knows who I am. That person definitely is like this guy again. What's he got a basket? What's he got in there? What's he got in that basket this time? He's got tomatoes. He's got 2 of the beef eaters. Okay. What else? Like where they're almost like, I feel like I've become a game at the grocery store where they're like, what's this guy? What's the Miller Lite hat guy? What's he up to today? What's he going to buy?
There's the times going through a checkout where there's a person like there and there's a cat, they're ringing you up and like you have stuff up. I've had so many times where you feel like you could be, you're being like judged, or at least they're just going like, oh, because like this person, how many they got? The what are you going to a birthday party or something?
Yeah,
You're like it's like ice cream and chips, and like maybe you're just like,
this is how this guy's going to spend $40. Okay.
Yeah, it's like you just had the munchies and you went to the grocery store like hungry and made a few indulgent decisions.
And at the end of the day, the other like just painfully simple part about it for me in my experience is I live in my hometown. So the likelihood of the person ringing me up or the person standing behind me or whatever is high that I know who they are. So I also like to keep that to a minimum. So headphones on, blinders on. Shoot, I'll be in the aisle with somebody and it'll be, a family member and I'll be like I was literally like in the grocery store with my mom the other day and she was like, I've been hollering for you from like across the store, like for a minute now. I'm like, oh, sorry.
Yeah, I can see how like when you get into an environment that's as overwhelming as like a grocery store, how like being in the zone could like really cut off your peripheral attention.
It does. Yeah. You got the headphones on. So like you're like kind of center focused. You're focusing on that. I always listen to a podcast. I'm not a music guy in there. I'm actually, becoming less and less a music guy in general in terms of things I listen to on my own. I listen to many podcasts because I'm trying to fill that time with something that's giving me something. Not that I don't get anything from music, but I'm not learning about whatever it is. I was listening to a podcast this morning on the night witches. It was like a Russian women that were bombing.
Is that why you had to push it till 11?
No, that was because I just
podcast.
Nope, I woke up too late. I just didn't set an alarm and woke up. I was like, I'm an hour behind where I wanted to be.
Was it a whiskey night last night?
No, God, no more of those. No, I learned a valuable lesson.
I was in the grocery store this morning. I told Rain, I was like, oh, look, because you got liquor in there. I was like, oh, I better pick up some whiskey.
No. Absolutely not. I didn't even tell you the other half of that story. You saw a bad half of it. You didn't even get the other half of it.
What's the other half?
I'm embarrassed to say this on microphone. I'll say I have no shame.
You just slept in longer that next day or something?
Oh no, I passed out in that bathroom. I woke up on in that tub. And I woke up in the same position.
Were you in the tub or just leaning
on
in the tub?
Well, here's the issue though. I woke up in that tub, on the tub. Like I was in the exact same position you left me at like 6 a.m, having not moved from that spot for the most part, which is mess all over me, disgusting, just mess. I had fallen asleep on my finger and completely cut off the circulation in my middle finger. It was purple for a week.
Oh gosh.
My entire shoulder was in so much agony I couldn't lift it from just being in this position on the tub for hours.
Dang, that knocked you out.
I like literally passed out. Like woke up, crawled to the bed, crawled into that room.
Bro, you poisoned yourself.
I bet it took 2 or 3 days for me to feel right again.
I believe that. I've done that. I've been. I can't say I've had a recollection where like I
did physical damage
where
like that.
Yeah, where like you had some numbness going on for a while. But I've definitely like feel like I've had more than one occasion where you pass out where you left off being very ill, and you just like wake up and it just like it takes a toll when you sleep in a certain position on something that's not padded, like the rim of a tub, like
the rim of a tub with my arm up in like this exact position, like with my hand under on the tub, and didn't even realize the finger thing. Like I was in like so much trouble just the next morning of just at the aftermath of that, of just like crawling around, the world still spinning, literally with my trash can crawling behind me. At one point here's the funniest part. At one point I was wearing only a t-shirt, but I was wearing it like shorts. I had my legs through the armholes.
a little confused right now.
And then just had it just pulled up with like the head hole in between. Just an absolute disaster of a human being.
Well, that T-shirt has a new memory attached to it, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah, weird night.
Is that the last time you drank?
No. You know what? No. Stupidly.
Well, I guess it's the last time you drank whiskey.
That'll be the last time that I maybe ever drink actual liquor.
While.
I had some seltzers at a festival.
I was gonna say, man, yeah, them seltzers you got in your fridge. I was like, you need to get some Tito's.
I was at the Fells Point Festival last Saturday, not the Saturday just passed, but the Saturday before that. Walking around there, and that was like a week later, right? That would have been a week at that point, maybe. And felt up to having a seltzer or two while walking around there. But the whiskey, bad news, permanent repercussions. I'll show you the picture later. I took a picture of my finger. The picture doesn't do it justice. It looked like a purple sunburn.
Feels like the older as my body has aged, there's like so much more like definitely like sleeping too. Like it's like I just cannot sleep in certain positions without the like waking up with like a numb arm.
Yeah.
That sucks when you're like half asleep and you like need to reposition. You're like, I can't lift my arm up by itself. Like my shifting of my upper body is what's moving my arm right now. And you're just going like, ugh.
I hate the
pulling your arm by its like the shoulder or whatever.
Oh, I was literally lifting my arm with my arm. I had to like I had to have a sleeve. I had to have a shirt on with a sleeve so I had something to hold on to for like a day. Like having it just in that up like that with my arm. Amongst the stupidest things I've done in a very, like the type of dumb shit you don't do at 38 years old, the type of dumb shit that you should definitely leave in your 20s. I did as a 38-year-old man, and lesson learned. Kind of going through it. It's kind of a tough time for me right now. So I've been just kind of going through it.
Man, you could write a song about that particular whiskey experience, man. Like, don't drink. You could make it like you don't drink gin.
Oh, I'm not going to lie to myself that at one point, I'm pretty sure I was laying just sprawled out on the bathroom floor, and I'm pretty sure like laughingly to myself I said, don't drink gin. Like, here's my moment. Like I had that thought because I was like, you know what, a million years ago I left Brad in a bathtub after a night.
I didn't leave you. You were
no.
You asked me to leave.
No. I didn't mean to say
anything left. I could have done, I would have done.
No. The thing that you could have done best in that moment was leave. I needed 100,000% home field advantage.
I bust in with the camera. I'm like, dude, podcast is back up. Come on, let's do
live
this.
Feed. We're going live, man.
Yeah, man. Come on. I'm on Facebook now.
Oh, there's a comma in this amount of followers. Check it out. Oh, you want to live stream my demise? Hang out here for a minute.
Oh man, that's what.
No, it was such a disastrous night that it was almost worth it, because every once in a while you need to reset why you don't do dumb shit. Every once in a while I feel like it's maybe just healthy, as long as your finger doesn't fall off, to just do something incredibly dumb, pay the consequence for it, and go, that is why I don't do these dumb things. That is why you keep your emotions in check, keep everything in balance, and just try to be smarter about it.
Man, it's I hadn't drank probably since I was like I had that beer to your place when you were showing me those die cast cars, and that was the last time I drank for like until it was like last week when I was at the grocery store. I was like, I told Randy, I was like, you want me to pick up a couple beers, and she like lit up, and she was because we both had been on like a while where we just hadn't, because the last like wave of drinking we just kept on just being like, why are we doing this? I don't even like doing this. It just makes me tired.
Oh yeah.
And
I
it
would
was
give up
like
at that point too.
you just like you're almost just drinking to like change things up or something, and just like get a little have a little fun or something, and you end up just being like super tired really fast. And it's just like I kind of just
sometimes
like,
it's like you think that it's like, oh, this is going to be my night, not realizing this is going to end my night significantly earlier than maybe even I want to.
I'm like I just feel like I just want to give up tonight and go to now. And now with winter, now with the daylight savings wave, it's like 6:30 and you're going like I gotta stay up at least a couple more hours. I can't go to bed now because I'll wake up at like 2 and not be able to go back to bed.
That's become a near impossibility alone. Like
staying up past dark.
Yeah, like being on your own, and if you're just living in a condo, and your condo might be incredibly just quiet and like built in a way that it just feels so insulated and isolated, both things, and it's dark at 4:30. It's like all of a sudden you're like, you know what? I'm not going to even start cooking dinner until 8 just to force me to just exist. Just so I'm just not like giving up the day and just going to bed and then doing this silly thing that I do where I wake up in the middle of the night and I go back to sleep. That's why I was late. This because I like woke up at like 4:30 and it was up till 6, and then I fell back asleep without an alarm. Where if I wouldn't have done that, I'd have been fine. But I gave up on my day early last night. Like I had an early one last night. It was like 9:30. I'm laying there. I'm watching something on TV, and I don't remember what it was because I fell asleep during that. And then woke up at whatever. So yeah, I call it punting, like in football. You get like 4th down and there's nothing else you can do, so you just punt the ball away. That's what I call going to bed early. I call it punting. I've just like, it's 4th down. I don't have a play. Nothing else is going on. Let's try again with the next set of downs, which is tomorrow. And I just punt.
In football, it's called punting. In baseball, what is it when you take the bat and just like boom like that? Like,
that's a bunt.
Bunting. Okay, I thought I was going to say bunting. I was like, no, it can't be. It's the same word, right? It's going to be punting.
No, punting is just kicking the ball to the. You get 4 downs, and you can pick up a first down. And if you pick up the first down, which is you start somewhere on the field, let's say the 10, and you get 10 yards for a first down. So wherever you start, you have 10 yards before you get a first down, right? So you have 4 plays to get that first down. If you don't get that, the other team takes over right where that ball is, right? So your goal is to get as far away from that as possible, right? So at some point, you use up 3 of those plays and you haven't got that 10 yards and they're about to start that close to your end zone. Your best bet is to punt the ball as far as you can down to the other side of the field and let them start there. So that's how I like operate through the day. At some point, the night is too close to my goal and I just punt the ball away, which is me just going to bed. But it has become like this thing that I say to myself. It is like a Kevin vernacular, like if I go to bed early, I'll just think to myself, like, time to punt. Got to punt 4th down. It's the 8:30. This is 4th down. I'm not going back out. I'm wearing pajamas. It's not like I'm going to get a text message from somebody that's like, dude, the Warriors are Buffalo Wild Wings. Let's go. Like, that doesn't happen anymore. You know what I mean? Like, so it's just like, oh, well, so I've just become accustomed to punting.
What do you think would be a name for this the title of this episode?
I had one earlier. It was something. Shit! I said something.
I thought I had something too from what we were saying. I was like, that's what we should call it.
Because the first we did the iceberg.
Yeah, iceberg was the first one.
And then I said something like 3 times in a row, and I was like, oh, that seems like that would be the dumbest but most obvious. It was something early on.
Why don't we just call it punting?
I mean, punting works too. Actually, that same inspiration.
Yeah.
I think I was going to take your song title.
Yeah, it crossed my mind. I'm like, it does have a.
That would be funny to like. We were talking about naming something, and we named.
Feel this. How dead I am.
Yeah, would be funny. Just But write that down somewhere. Actually, that's funny we say that. To go all the way back to a conversation earlier, you had said something that is now an hour or whatever later in my head, and this is exactly how organically this happens. But you were talking about spiral notebooks, and you talked about top spiral, and in my brain I heard that as a top spiral, and I instantly have like dedicated that to my memory to like use that, a top spiral.
Top spiral?
But a top, like you're on it.
Oh, a top spiral.
A top spiral. Those two words together, like you're before a spiral. Like you're on top of it. You're atop a spiral. Like I heard it as a top spiral, and it weirdly took me out of the conversation for half a second, where I was just like, oh, that like painted a picture in my head of like somebody before a fall, before a collapse,
before the downward spiral.
Yeah. Like to be atop the spiral. So like that's how organically this stuff happens. Somebody says something, I slightly mishear it, I see it. I see a vibe. You know, the people that say that they like can see color or whatever the hell, they can see music or whatever that stinatosis or whatever they call that. I don't remember, but I like feel like I can see vibe. I can feel like I can see an aura. I can hear a song title and like know like, oh, I know what chords I want to use with that. I know that I want that to be a slow burn. I know that I exist in my own head. I exist in my own little, this is what I wanted to title it: Cinematic Universe.
Cinematic universe?
Because I kept saying it. The Kurt Cobain cinematic universe, the Billy Corgan cinematic universe. I kept talking about these bigger cinematic universes. I talked about icebergs the first time and cinematic universe. The second time was the words I kept saying over and over again. The concept of just like your own aesthetic, your own, you know, they call it the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's everything that just exists under that, everything that tells that story, like specifically. Like not everything is the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's just those things that are all branched together. It's a funny concept to me. I love it. And I've been thinking about longer than the movie cinematic universes have existed, I guess, because like I always like, oh, you know, the Quentin Tarantino cinematic universe, like it isn't a superhero thing, but you know that John Travolta's character is the brother of Michael Madsen's character in Reservoir Dogs. Like that there, shared universe. Those movies exist in the same world. Those characters could interact if you were to be able to get in there. And like, I've always kind of been like floored by that idea, that concept. That's what I was talking about with like that book earlier. It's like, I like the idea of like these like hubs and stories and stuff. I've always said that I always thought, I heard a rumor a long time ago or an interview with J.J. Abrams. And he was talking about doing a sequel to the movie Cloverfield. Mm-hmm. And I remember he like just was saying like, oh, there's all these ideas. What if I could just do a series of sequels from other people's point of views of the exact same Cloverfield attack? Everybody would have had a story from that night and they're all interesting. And that blew my mind. I was like, has there ever been a sequel movie to the same event?
Yeah, that's what kind of like that the Bender, the movie the idea, or that idea that Kevin was talking about, where you almost like you could create like all these alternate versions of like that concept based off of like a very similar, you know, like circumstance of just being like, well, that movie created this story, but you could create so many more stories from that same like happening or theme, you know.
What if you did
creating a Netflix series?
What if you did? There's so many, like, I love breaking things apart like that. I love like thinking about what's the dumbest version of that. What's like the coolest, most interesting version of that. I always say dumbest is almost like a substitute for interesting and cool though. But like in my mind, you know what I would love? I would love a Breakfast Club Netflix series. That's how many people are in it's 7 kids. How many people is it? 6 characters. If let's just say 7 without thinking about it, it's those 7 kids, right? What if you get 7 stories where each one of them takes a turn being a bully? What if you get to see that same day, but each one of them woke up on the wrong side of the bed? What if you just got to see the version of that where Anthony Michael Hall's dad is just more of a prick about wrestling practice or whatever, and he comes in and just spits vitriol all over all these people, and they react to him the way that they all reacted to Bender. I'd be interested. Or Molly Ringwald's in a shitty mood and is acting shitty towards people, and everybody's just like, oh geez, and that creates some sort of story. Like, I also just want to see every one of their stories too. I want to know, like, Bender just gets the bad rap because he was the bad guy that day.
Well, you said Anthony Michael Hall, but you said dad and said wrestling practice. I was thinking Anthony Michael Hall, with him being kind of like the nerd in the group. What if he was like in there and there was like another nerd, and it was like nerd on nerd, where he was like, he had to like be the superior nerd and was just like more evil to this. Like, it was like he was almost did like, you know.
That would be more modernizing it. It feels like it's like nowadays you're telling stories about mean nerds.
Mean
in the
nerds.
90s and in the 80s and 90s, they were like still looked upon as like.
You'd think they'd be a comrade of each other, and then
Yeah,
you
they
just
had
feel like,
funny
oh,
movies about Revenge of the Nerds beginning all together.
it's a
Nowadays,
nerd eat nerd world.
nowadays, like the nerd is like the school shooter. You know what I mean? Like the nerds have they're because they're in charge of the world. To go back to all of that, the nerds now are in charge of everything. What was nerd culture then? Like, this is an entirely different tangent. I'll nutshell it. But tell me that I could have bought a Green Lantern t-shirt at a Walmart in the 90s. I'd have been like, what? No, I have to go to like a special comic book store. Hope they have the one I want. Hope they have the one I want in my size. Like, it was like being a nerd during those times was a little more challenging. It wasn't what was literally the most popular thing on earth like it is now. And it's the same stuff. It's wild.
Seems like the stuff you'd see at the Walmart in the 90s would be like stuff that's would be super cool to have now. Like, you go in there and be like NASCAR t-shirts
Yeah,
or something.
but
and
it would
like
been
now you wouldn't get those t-shirts at the at
It would have been the
Walmart.
super popular.
But those shirts would be fire right now.
Yep, it would be the Simpsons shirts and NASCAR shirts and sport. It would be all of the stuff that was super popular that would also seem super cool now because it would be vintage and popular and of a different era. But it wasn't nerd stuff. It wasn't.
2002 was 20 years ago.